Hello, my name is Victor. I'm the product manager of Jmix. You may know me based on the webinars we've already taken on the Jmix YouTube channel. Thank you for coming. Today we'll speak about new Jmix 2.4 release and exciting features, really exciting features which we've prepared for a long time. You may know that traditionally we meet each other 3 times a year, in winter, in summer, and in autumn. And this is the typical cadence, the typical release cadence, which we try to follow with Jmix. Traditionally, in autumn, we show the most powerful features, which we have been working on for the whole year. In the beginning of the year, we also try to highlight some basic commitments we make on product development, and during the year, we work on them. You may know that we also take an annual Jmix roadmap, and we try to follow this roadmap all the year. And by the end of the year, we will make the new one for the next year. You will find the roadmap for the next year. Hopefully before Christmas holidays, latest January. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time. But I suppose things we will show you today will be greatly accepted by you. I think we can start. Basically, it would be nice if you will share in the YouTube channel whether you can hear us nice, good, and whether you can see us also in the right resolution. So you can put hearts or pluses or whatever, just to help us to understand that everything with the YouTube streaming goes well. Thank you in advance. If we will detect some troubles with the streaming, we have a special person. His name is Igor. He will help us to maintain difficulties during the streaming. I see that everything sounds nice. Yeah, that's great. That means that we can proceed. We'll split our today's webinar in 3 sections. From the very beginning, I will highlight some general features which we've highlighted at the beginning of the year about Jmix. Then I will deliver the word to Konstantin, the CTO of the Jmix team, and he will highlight and make an overview of the major updates and improvements in Jmix. And at the end, we'll organize some Q&A section, and I will try to answer your questions. So that's mean that during the webinar, things that won't be easy for you to understand, or you will find a demand to go deeper in some topics, you can write your questions in the YouTube chat, and we'll discuss it at the end. Yeah, okay, so basically we'll also try to answer questions during the streaming, but in case something will be so very difficult, or we'll decide to highlight it by voice, we'll discuss it at the end. We'll have enough time. So if you don't mind, we'll start with our today's presentation. And I switch to my first slide. That's it. The first thing I would like to start with is the Jmix AI assistant. You know that almost all technologies, especially tools, productivity tools worldwide, they try to pursue this trend and embed somehow AI capabilities into their products. And we are not the only ones, sure. What is this Jmix assistant for? How you can use it? You can use it basically first use case is when you just, as I've already mentioned, step into technology, just make your first steps. So you can ask it general questions and receive answers very fast. And what's most wonderful is that you get them 24/7. You don't need to wait for somebody to answer this question. The second use case is the use case when the, let's say, regular developers, regular Jmix developers, they investigate the possibility to implement some new feature that they haven't used for a while, or they just forgot the syntaxes, so they can just write down their question and get the answer and the code snippet very fast. And the third use case, which we try to deliver, is to fulfill, is when you have some new task, some new business task, and you want to evaluate whether Jmix fits this use case or not. So you can also ask Jmix AI Assistant how you can do this, implement this use case with Jmix, basically. In the recent time, we've improved the access to the Jmix AI Assistant via the Jmix documentation. So just entering the Jmix documentation via the docs.jmix.io, you can see that in the left upper corner, just near this, ask for authentication to authorize you in our system. So basically, if you have some user account on our forum, there will be no difficulties to authenticate and authorize into Jmix AI Assistant. Then the scenario of working with Jmix Assistant is quite straightforward. You just need to write your question right here, how to do something, blah, 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 and press send. Then it will take some time to prepare the answer for you, and it will show you right here in the upper, to the top of this input stream. So here you can see basically the history of your questions, of your prompts. For example, last time I've asked it the question how to create a new UI control. And by the way, I didn't highlight the entity model here. I just asked to show me the list of streets filtered by the value of the city, chosen in the entity picker with some ID. And here you can see the answer that it recommended me to, it made me some recommendations on the data model. It made me recommendations on how to organize the entity picker on the view XML layout. It showed me the XML layout code and the controller code with the listener, which puts the filtering option to the data loader. So you can see also here all detailed explanations about what UI components and what APIs and subsystems did it use in its answer. And this is definitely very helpful, especially when you just enter the technology. Here you can go deeper and ask the, let's say, some detailed question about some things which were mentioned here. And it will answer, because since October, it can hold the context. So it holds the context of the conversation, and you can also ask it detailed questions to get some additional things about your primary question. So this is really a very delightful feature, and we do strongly recommend you to start using it. I would also like to mention that every time you ask the question to Jmix Assistant, it asks you to rate, to score the quality of the question. So I understand that it can look boring, but it always helps our team to improve this AI assistant, to deliver you better questions, and to help the newcomers, which we just enter the technology, to move faster. So that's all about the Jmix AI assistant. I'd like to switch to another important feature and highlight the way we are trying to develop it. I'm talking about BPM. You may know that in the beginning of the year, we've announced that we will try to implement the Jmix BPM add-on with the standalone BPM engine. Uh, and in the beginning of the year, we've performed some R&Ds and found out that the direct implementation of standalone BPM engine looks quite difficult for existing users, because when we implement the standalone instead of embedded BPM engine, we get a naturally distributed system, and we start to think about it as, say, as a microservices system. And this strongly affects the existing experience, because we cannot continue using the stencils like entity data task, like email sending, and etc. And this breaks the existing experience of the Jmix developers. And based on the fact that we often hear from the community that some new features we bring to Jmix look difficult, we decided not to make the existing Jmix offering more complex and get this standalone BPM engine out of the Jmix and deliver it as a separate product, which can make, you can operate, which you can use as a separate solution or in combination with Jmix. The name of the new product is OpenBPM, and this will be not a single product. Inside this product will include the studio to work with the BPM designer, with the BPM modeler. It will be supplied with the task list. It will be supplied with the BPM admin. It will be supplied with the special business analyst portal and a lot of new fancy things. Basically, it will this new type of product will also be compatible with Jmix, because Jmix will supply master data applications or business data applications to be used inside OpenBPM. I can highlight just some fancy screenshots about OpenBPM Studio. You can see the screenshot of the IntelliJ IDEA new plugin, OpenBPM Studio. You can see here the OpenBPM Explorer with a dedicated BPM hierarchy tree, where you can handle the process, the external process engine. You can connect to external process repositories. You can still design business processes. You can design decision-making tables. You can design process forms. The new feature which we carry here, which we deliver here into BPM Studio, will be the process form designer, which is also using the BPM and IO designer for forms. And this new plugin can be used in future in connection with the Jmix business model application. And the process which will be designed here in the distributed mode can work tightly with the data stored in Jmix applications, but in the standalone mode. If you find this new concept interested, just let's say from the very beginning, from my few words about it, you can go to the Jmix website on the main page here, jmix.io. Access the platform folder on the main menu. Go to the process platform, get some details about this new concept. And if you want to get a detailed view on this new feature, you can tag here, show me a demo, and we will connect with you and consider the time and date where we can make you a small demo of this new product. How does it look like, and how it can fit your use case, and how it can be used. Basically, that's all for me, and I'm glad to give a word to Konstantin. Konstantin, please tell us about new features in Jmix 2.4. Yeah, that's all for me.
Sure. Thank you, Victor. My name is Konstantin Krivopustov. I'm head of engineering at Jmix. And now I'll show you what's new in the latest Jmix 2.4 in the main product that just delivered in October. So we are going to look at new add-ons, cover improvements in the UI, take a look at enhanced search capabilities and new features in Studio. As usual, we'll also discuss our future plans, including what's coming in the next release. First, let's talk about the new calendar add-on. It uses the well-known full calendar JavaScript library and completely integrates this front-end JS component into Jmix UI. This allows you to control it using Java and XML descriptors, just like any other Jmix UI component. We've added new examples to the UI samples application. So I'll demonstrate some calendar features on these examples. This is a basic usage of a data-bound calendar. We have an event entity with some relevant fields like title, start date, end date, and all day flag. And in the view, there is a collection container of this entity, and the calendar component uses this data container as its data provider. The calendar also defines some mappings from the entity fields to the properties of the calendar events, like title, start and date time, and all day flag. So the calendar shows our events. You can provide calendar events in different ways. In this example, events are just added programmatically using this list calendar data provider. Just a single event. Another way is to define an items query element in the calendar and write your JPQL query. So the calendar itself will fetch events from the database. Or you can define a load delegate for the calendar data provider, like here, and load events from an arbitrary service. Of course, the calendar provides different display modes: day, week, month, year, and so on. And users, as in this example, users can drag and drop events and resize them. So the calendar will change attributes of the linked entities. There are lots of other functions. You can explore them here in the examples and in the documentation. The next add-on is Pivot Table. It's based on the Pivot Table JS library and integrates it into the Jmix UI, similarly to the calendar component. Pivot Table is perfect for analyzing data and creating visual summaries. Users can restructure data by dragging and dropping fields and easily group and aggregate data. And all this can be done using UI controls available at runtime. Let's take a look at the pivot table again here in the UI samples application. There is a simple example of a pivot table pre-configured at design time. So there is a collection container with an entity, tip info in this case, and the pivot table component uses this data container. The properties element defines all available properties taken from the entity And the columns and rows elements define the properties, usage of properties in columns and rows of the table. By default, the pivot table aggregates the number of rows in the data set corresponding to each cell, but it can also be a sum or average of a particular entity property. You can see it here. In this example, the pivot table is in so-called UI mode, when users can configure the table on the fly. They can select an aggregation method and a property to aggregate. And of course, users can drag and drop properties from rows and rows, columns and rows, and the contents and structure of the table will change. When embedding a pivot table into your applications, keep in mind that this is purely a UI tool, which needs all the data to be loaded from the database to the application server and then to the user's browser. So use it only with data set with a moderate number of rows, say less than 10,000. Otherwise, you can overload the server. Okay, the next add-on is Kanban. It's a visual tool for managing tasks on a Kanban board. This add-on is built on the Smart Kanban JavaScript library. And again, it seamlessly integrates the third-party JS component into Jmix UI. Unlike the previous add-ons, the Kanban add-on is commercial. It's now included in the enterprise subscription. The license includes the ability to use the Smart Kanban JS component in Jmix applications without any restrictions. Let's explore some examples of this component. Perhaps the most popular use case is when you have an entity that represents a task and you need to display it on a Kanban board. And here you can see the Kanban task entity with name, status, assignee, and other attributes. In the view descriptor, there is a collection container with this entity, and the Kanban component uses this data container. The properties mapping element defines mapping between entity attributes and Kanban fields. And columns element allows you to define custom names for columns depending on the values in the status field. The Kanban component can have its own actions, so like a data grid. So users can, for example, edit linked entities in a standard way using a detail view. Users can also drag and drop items, tasks, and the corresponding entity attributes will be updated. To save changes to the database immediately, you need to either set the autosave attribute for the Kanban component or define a special save delegate handler for it. If you don't do this, changes will be saved only if you save the data context of the whole view. So that was a brief look at the new UI level add-ons, and now let's look at the new features on the system level. The next new feature is the UI constraints add-on. It allows you to use resource roles to display or to disable or hide any UI component or action of your application. And it works also for components not bound to data. You just need a component ID to define a constraint for it. For example, it can be a button or a layout. The add-on brings a new resource policy, UI component policy. This policy can be defined in a resource role, both at design time and at runtime. Let's take a look at how it can be done in an example application. This is a standard onboarding application from the Jmix tutorial, and I will log in as Alice, who is a HR manager. HR managers in this application can see the list of users, and they also see this role assignments and additional buttons. Even though, and I will add a UI component policy. Select a view and components of this view, additional button, and the user's data grid, show role assignments action. And these radio buttons by default will deny visibility of these components. So I will save the role and assign it to Alice. Now I will log in as Alice again. And now I don't see these buttons, which is what I need. The same can be done at development time in a role interface. Let's take a look at how we can do this. So I will open some resource role. And you can see the UI constraints tab for the role. And similarly to the runtime role editor, I will select a view and components of this view, which I want to disable or hide. Show role assignments button and show role, additional button, show role assignments. Here we can see the same action and effects. And Studio will add a new method with the UI component policy annotation, which specifies the view and component IDs to deny. So it will have the same effect as my previous runtime role configuration. This add-on lets you fine-tune the access to UI in resource roles using declarative approach. You don't have to write extra code in your views, and you can configure the access both when developing the application and when it's already running and serving users. This add-on is also commercial, and it's included in the enterprise subscription. And the last new add-on in this release is REST Data Store. It complements the REST API add-on and lets you easily integrate with other Jmix applications. As you probably know, in Jmix, all CRUD operations go through the data manager interface. You either call it directly in your application logic or through data repositories, or the framework calls it implicitly when loads and saves data in UI views. The data manager, in turn, delegates to a data store implementation, usually to JPA data store that works with the JPA. And the new add-on provides an alternative data store that works with DTO entities mapped to a REST API of another Jmix application. It allows you to work with data from a remote application the same as with local entities. You can display, update, and save data without having to write custom CRUD code. The documentation for Jmix 2.4 includes two new guides that demonstrate the use of the REST data store. The first one is about integrating multiple separate applications into a single distributed system. The example system consists of three applications: customers, products, and orders. The orders application uses data from products and customers, and the applications connect with each other through the REST API and REST data store. Let's take a look at some implementation details. Here, in the orders application, we have two additional data stores, customers and products, each of them of the REST data store type. And configuration parameters include the remote application URL and the client credentials for authentication. In the data model, we have DTO entities corresponding to JPA entities of the remote application. For example, this product DTO, it belongs to the additional data store and corresponds to the product JPA entity of the product application. The views for the DTO entity are almost completely standard. The only difference is here is that they don't specify GPQL queries. For the obvious reason, the entity is loaded from a REST API instead of a database. And you don't have to write any load safe delegates in the controller because the entity goes through the data manager in a standard way. The second guide demonstrates an opposite task, how to split a single Jmix application into the backend and front-end applications. Sometimes it's required for security or scalability reasons, and this is now possible and relatively easy with the help of the REST data store. But please use this approach only when it's absolutely necessary, because the resulting distributed system will be more complicated than a full-stack application, and REST has a lot of limitations compared to the direct access to the database. To sum up, the REST data store gives you flexibility in building your applications in a distributed manner with minimal efforts. So now we are done with the new add-ons, and let's check out the other features. You can now easily use fragments to render items in components like virtual list and data grid. This is done declaratively in XML, and the framework automatically transfers data from a collection container linked to the component to the instance container in the fragment. Let's see how it's configured in an example. Here you can see a virtual list component, and each row of the list includes a header component, details layout with some text fields. In the view XML, there is a collection container with the employee entity and virtual list component that uses this data container. And inside the virtual list, there is a fragment renderer element that points to a fragment. In the fragment, there is an instance container for employee and UI components, visual components, headers, details layout, and text fields. And this instance container receives the rendered entity instance automatically because the fragment class extends a special fragment renderer base class and defines the ID of the instance container in this render item container annotation. We just make this declarative configuration, and the framework connects everything automatically. In the previous example with fragment renderer, you might notice that HTML header components H3 have the data container and property attributes. This is also a new feature of Jmix 2.4. Previously, you could assign dynamic values to HTML components only programmatically in Java code. The next new feature is about executing code in UI layer asynchronously. Perhaps you know about the background tasks mechanism that has existed in Jmix since the beginning. It's a powerful feature, but it requires from you to write quite a lot of code, which is displayed here on the left. And sometimes you don't need the advanced background tasks, such as displaying the progress or ability to cancel the task. You just need to execute some code asynchronously and update the UI with the result of the execution. So we introduced the UI async tasks bin, which lets you write more concise code. You can see it on the right. Let me show you possible usage of UI async tasks on an example. Here in my onboarding application, I made some artificial delay into loading linked users when editing a department. So when I click edit here, you can see that the whole detail view is loaded with a delay. It's quite long delay. But actually, the delay is only in loading linked users. The main department entity is loaded instantly. So it would make sense to load users in a separate thread and show the view as soon as the main entity is loaded. I created a separate view. That will open when I click Edit Async. As you can see, the view is opened immediately and the main fields are available right away. Only the list of users is shown with a delay. Apparently, this approach makes the UI more responsive. Now let's look at how it's done. Here in this view, detail async view, there is a separate collection container for users linked to a department. And I removed the data load coordinator because otherwise it would start loading users automatically in the main UI thread as soon as the view is opened. Instead, I defined this onBeforeShow handler. And first, it triggers loading of the department entity in the main UI thread. Then it invokes UI async tasks bin and provides two lambdas to it. The first one loads a list of users, and the second one sets this list into collection data container and updates some UI components. The first lambda is a task that is executed in a separate thread. The second one is the result handler. It's executed in the main UI thread when the task is finished. The UI async tasks bin uses a standard Java completable future under the hood, and this apply async method actually returns an instance of completable future that you can configure additionally or chain and combine with other futures. We've also made some improvements to the full text search functionality. Now you can add the extended search annotation to your index definitions, and users will be able to search through indexed fields with a start with condition. We've also added a search settings dialog that can be opened from the search field component. So here, if I switch to start with, I will be able to search by first few letters. So the full text search is now more convenient and functional out of the box without any additional customization on the project level. In Studio, you made the component inspector easier to use. Properties are now grouped into categories like general, data binding, size, and others, which makes it easier to find what you're looking for. We've also improved support for selecting icons. Studio now shows a dialog where you can see all available icons. And lastly, we are ready to present a new feature in Studio that makes it easier to use external data from REST services with an OpenAPI schema. Studio now includes a set of tools that can help you set up the OpenAPI client generator, automatically create DTO entities and mappers for the OpenAPI model, and services that facilitate working with the external API. The documentation for Jmix 2.4 includes a guide that demonstrates the usage of the Studio tool for integrating a Jmix application with the Spring Pet Clinic REST example. Let's take a look at the complete project from this guide in the IDE. After generating the OpenAPI client using this command, this action new advanced OpenAPI client, the Jmix tool window will contain this OpenAPI node that shows created classes. Spring configuration class, API classes corresponding to the endpoints, and model classes corresponding to the schema objects. All these client classes are generated from the schema file on each project build, and they are located in the build generated folder. The next step after client generation is to create Jmix entities and mappers between entities and model classes. We don't recommend using API model classes in the application code directly, because they can have data types and associations incompatible with Jmix. Also, by creating an intermediate layer, you can easily transform the external data to a structure more suitable for your application. So Studio helps you to generate entities and mappers and shows them next to the model classes, like here. That is a regular Jmix DTO entity, and the mapper is based on the map struct annotation processor library. And the last step is to create intermediate services corresponding to the API endpoints. These services operate with Jmix entities, convert them to model classes, and invoke API. So they are actually wrappers around API classes. Again, Studio helps you to generate such services and then shows them as usages of API classes. A service is just a regular Spring Bean, and you can customize it if you need. And it can be easily invoked from views, for example, like here from a view delegate, from a load delegate in a view. So in general, these new features of Studio makes it much easier to connect your application to external APIs and use data from sources other than databases. That was the list of most important updates in Jmix 2.4. Our next release is planned for February next year. We'll complete the work on the tabbed main window mode, which has already been started. And we'll also focus on a few key features, including a new message templates add-on for the Flow UI and editable maps in the Maps add-on. And later next year, we are going to deliver a long-awaited feature, grouping data grid, similar to the group table of the classic UI. And of course, we'll continue to refine and improve the features we've talked about today. So that's all for today from my side.
Okay. So something will appear on the screen right now, and we can continue talking. That was great. That was great. All the time I was tracking the chat on YouTube, and every time you've showed, I've seen twice a big bang of fireworks and hearts. The first time when you've showed the external REST data source, so it was just blasting. A lot of emotions came from our attendees today. And the second time when you've highlighted the consuming of external REST API via OpenAPI schema. So again, a blast of emotions. So based on the feedback, based on the emotions coming from our audience, these two features were the most impressive today. Once again, the question to everyone who are listening to us today: what is your favorite? What is your favorite thing that you've met today? Please vote or tell us in the chat what was your favorite feature. What was the most impressive feature which you've detected today? And my question to Konstantin, while we are looking for questions in the chat, I just one question, Konstantin. What is your favorite? What is your favorite, the one which you've announced today, and which one you think is the most valuable?
Honestly,
sure, for sure.
REST data store, of course, because I wrote it.
Because this is my work. That's great. That's great. That means that the Jmix REST data store is high qualified, very powerful, super important feature created by Konstantin, so you can use it. And for sure, please share with us your feedback. Konstantin mentioned already that this doesn't mean that we just block working on improvements of these add-ons and features in future. So we want to acquire more feedback from you and make the upcoming improvements, let's say, more valuable, more explicit to your demands. So please come to our Slack channel. If you are not there still, please connect to our Slack channel using everything you want. You can see the Slack channel URL in the bottom of this video. You can go to our main page of Jmix and find the Slack icon there. So everywhere you want, you can connect, and please share your feedback, because your feedback is the most valuable thing which helps to move our product further. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex, for sharing the tag, the ticket for our Slack channel. Okay, definitely there was one question from the guy called I'm human, not inhuman. Basically, I've answered it, and he's keeping silent. I'm a little bit afraid this can be an AI agent already, so I'm not sure whether it's a live person or not. But there is no response. No response. Hopefully, my answer was helpful to this person called I'm a human, not inhuman. Well, okay. If somebody have questions, please write them down here in the live chat. We'll sit here for a while, I think 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and wait for some good question coming. And while you're thinking of your questions, I will also I will also take time to announce that recently, especially last week, we've published a new article in the Jmix blog concerning the end of free Cuba platform maintenance. Please take it into account and take a look at it if you're the Cuba platform user, because we've highlighted the most, let's say, sensitive questions there in this blog post. And we've structured it as a question and answer. So you can yeah, I should add that the questions have been acquired during all this year from you. So basically, from all the customers of Cuba platform, coming from users of Cuba platform. So we've tried to answer all major questions there, and there are answers. So please go to the blog, check this article. If you won't find something, please connect to the channel and ask a question. We'll proceed there. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So still no questions, Konstantin. I think that everyone's so impressed by the things we've highlighted today, especially by REST data store for sure. Because yeah, I think that's all. We can finalize it right here. I want to say thank you for everybody who came today, who spent their time for listening to us, for tracking the news and things which are coming from the Jmix team. We are working hard to make your life more productive. Yeah, and that's all for today. I want to say thank you and say goodbye. Please subscribe on our channel. Thank you very much, Konstantin, for great things coming to the Jmix world today.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.